Hello out there, this is Wakeangel2K1 coming at you with a review of DX9 War in Pocket Leah, also known as another Not Legends class RC. Normally this can only be purchased in a 2-pack, but I found one on eBay for $19.98 and free shipping just without the box or instructions or anything. So I figured why not, and I took the plunge. So, I'm filming this in my grandmother's apartment instead of my own, so the lighting conditions aren't quite as favorable as they are back at my place, but hopefully you can still appreciate RC here. This RC is of course made to be as accurate to the G1 cartoon version of the character as possible. So you see her blue eyes, pink face, white helmet, and her very bright bubblegum pink body. Yes. The figure looks really good, especially for this size scale, although there are some issues. First of all, the way her hips transform, you get this, it has a tendency to separate out, so you gotta be careful with that. And then everything needs to be lined up. There's nothing that keeps the crotch pegged together. And you got kind of like daylight going right through the center of her body because there's nothing in there. Of course, this also means she has no waist swivel. Now, there were no instructions, so I might have something transformed wrong, but I don't think that's the case because, you know, you can see the pins right there. These only rotate, they don't go down any further. So, I got everything pegged in properly. If I mistransformed the figure, let me know, but I really don't think I did. And there's some clear daylight and a hole because of the way her waist transforms. I know they had to take those cuts out of the middle of her torso so that you would have room to move them. If the corners went all the way, then they would clash. So they had to make those cuts so that it could pass through. But then when you seal it up, you got a triangle-shaped gap there, and in a normal transformer, a gap like that would be covered by another piece of plastic. From behind, the figure it looks actually very basic from behind. You know, it's just RC's not much. She has no butt. So, unlike the deluxe version, she does not have that ass. Although she does have much less car kibble, she only has a little bit up on her shoulders, which is more accurate to her G1 representation than her Generations toy came out as. Now, as for articulation of the figure, she has a swivel neck, so she can look left and right, and you can adjust the length of her neck. It can go up this high, but that's a little bit giraffe or Yellow Diamond from Steven Universe, so I like to push it halfway down to create a neck that's a better length. As you can see, she has ball-jointed shoulders with a very excellent range, full tree pose. Ball-jointed elbow, which gets a full 90-degree bend, and also acts as a bicep swivel. There is nothing in her waist joint, as I mentioned before, because of the way she transforms, but she has very wide-reaching full forward, full backwards, full outwards hips, so plenty of range in her hips. Ball jointed knees, which afford her a knee swivel. Unfortunately, the bend is pretty shallow. It's only roughly 45-ish degrees, maybe 60 degrees at the most. And she has ball jointed feet, which have a lot more range. She can point her feet straight down, although that's about as far forward as they go. And she has a toe joint, so she can toe. So if you want your, if you ever had your fantasies of your ballerina RC, there you go. So yeah, the articulation on her is decent, not great, but pretty decent for a figure this size. And she really does a great job of capturing the look of the G1 RC. So let's take a look at her accessories. So, like I said, I got this figure out of the box, so there's only 2 accessories she came with. I don't know if these are the only accessories, but they're what was sent to me. You get a stand with, when you look inside, it says, it has the company logo, DX9, inside of it. And a little pink gun, which is completely unpainted. I mean, I know accessorizing is a thing, but can't they at least, like, cast this in a gunmetal gray plastic? So she wields the gun in either hand, of course, a simple peg, and it holds in place very fine. Absolutely nothing wrong with the way that RC can hold this gun. That is a gun. It is very simple, it is very basic, and mazel tov. If you don't want her to hold the gun, there really isn't any place on her body that you can peg it in. Not even in the transformation hole on her leg, because it's a different size peg. But her stand does come with a couple of little holes in the bottom, so you can peg the gun into there, so you have a storage spot for it. As for how she uses the stand itself, as you can see, it has a couple of square holes which are meant to slot in with the heels on her feet. So, despite the high-heeled shoes and complete lack of heel spurs, with this stand, you can get her standing perfectly stock straight, and you can even lean her backwards without it overbalancing. Although I don't really see why you would do that. Although, of course, the real reason you would want to stand like this is that you can have action-oriented, poses like this, where you wouldn't have to worry about the figure falling over on your display shelf. So, that's all well and good. So, like I said, aside from that little transformation thing with her crotch, it actually looks pretty good in robot mode and is fairly accurate. Now, let's take a look at the vehicle mode. I'm not going to do the full transformation on camera, but there is one issue I have. There is almost no clearance for her head and the chest, because you gotta unfold this thing in the middle and then take this up over her head, and it has very little room. Like it's a good thing the head is unpainted and this is just pink plastic, because they would totally scratch each other if they were painted parts, and that's no good. So it's very difficult to get that up the right way, and it's even harder when you're transforming it down. So that is an annoying part of the transformation that you had to worry about, her head clashing with the space. But once you get that part out of the way, everything else falls together pretty easily. Okay, I call this RC's ridiculous hat mode. It happens when you pull her chest down and peg it into place without realizing that once this is pegged in, there's actually no clearance to get this, the car cable back over her shoulders. Yeah. Actually, kind of looks a little bit like a Genesect from Pokemon. This is what happens when you don't get instruction sheets with the toys you buy. And seriously, this is such a pain in the ass to get this down and this down at the same time while still having enough clearance for the head, even with that shrinking neck. When the neck is pushing all the way, it's still hard to do. So yeah, that is seriously just a really annoying part of her transformation. A legend scale figure shouldn't be this difficult to transform. And there is RC's little pink car mode. Now, this car mode is for display purposes only, because as you can see, those wheels are sculpted little circlets. There is no rolling with this toy whatsoever. So it's not actually meant to be a toy car, it's just toy car shaped. The profile is really good. It's so sleek and flat. Plus it's so much shorter this way. I mean, that's some pseudo mass shifting going on there. And as you can see from this top view, there are no seats. When you look down into it, you see nothing but her shoulder ball joints. And it's not too bad, especially since, from most angles where you would look at it as if it's a car, you don't really notice too much. But yeah, it's very accurate to her little G1 look. And of course, at the bottom you can see the parts compression going on there. Her legs and her arms pretty much fill out the entirety of the vehicle's underkibble, so there is no room for any kind of weapon storage on this one. It is not like the Generations toy at all, which is a good reason why her stand comes with this little peg for her gun. So on its own merit, it's not bad. It's a shame you can normally only get it in a 2-pack, and I just happened to get it from some guy who was getting rid of it on eBay. But it's actually a nice little toy at this size scale. It is a perfectly serviceable G1 accurate RC. And aside from that little thing where her hips don't peg together, leaving that opening crotch kind of thing in her robot mode, it's actually a really good little toy. So just based on this, I would recommend trying to pick her up if you're a big RC fan and just waiting for Hasbro to come up with an official Legend size figure is just not scratching your itch. Of course, I can't let it go here because you do know that there is one inevitable comparison that we're going to have to do. So here we are with the DX9 War and Pocket Leia compared to Pink Assassin from Iron Factory. As you can see, War and Pocket scale is a little bit bigger. It's not quite the difference between a Legend and a Legions figure, but you can pretend that, like, if that was a deluxe size toy, that's what a Voyager size toy would look like. So, yeah, so clearly she's bigger, although obviously within the fudge factor of the Transformers Legends size class, both of them could still blend in more or less. And as you can see, like, Pink Assassin is designed to emulate RC as she is in the IDW comics, hence the more armored look on her forearms and you know, more technical Greeble, while this, as much as possible, tries to emulate the look from the 1986 movie, you know, G1 RC. So neither one is right or wrong, they're just two different interpretations of a character, which is not bad at all. Of course, you are going to have to face some inevitable facts, like, first of all, where you have this split crotch thing going on with War and Pocket RC, the Max Factory RC has a nice solid crotch. She also has superior articulation in that you have a ball joint in the waist, which allows for some movement as well as turning. And with that double pin knee, she has a much deeper knee bend. So also she has significantly larger heels. Not that much larger, but significantly larger. So this figure does have some better articulation in some spots, and it, you know, of course the backpack kibble on this thing, it just kind of sticks out on a little stick coming off of her waist, while here it's actually more accurately placed according to how her cartoon and comic book appearance looks. So, you know, I'm not going to say that one is objectively better than the other, but if you have certain preferences, then you're clearly going to have them based on the look of the figures. And just so you know, the weapons that Pink Assassin comes with do indeed fit in Leia's hands. So if you want Leia to be wielding Pink Assassin's swords or her translucent blue gun, those are options that are available to her. Yeah. Alright. Now it's hard to judge the comparison with their robot modes, because you just have two different interpretations of a character, and being objective here is going to be difficult when there is, of course, going to be buyers' preferences. But there is one category where I believe the War in the Pocket just kind of blows the other one out of the water, and I think we all know what it is. Yeah, when you compare vehicle modes, frankly, it is no contest. The War in the Pocket figure just looks more like RC's car. I mean, you can't even claim that this is RC's Cybertronian mode, because it doesn't really look like anything. I mean, it clearly has a pair of legs folded up back here. It doesn't even stay flat because it's so poorly balanced. And it relies on its weapons to actually hold the vehicle together. Like, the gun is holding the ankles together, and the swords are trying their best to hide the legs. It's just not a good vehicle mode at all, really. Like, this is one of those times you can unambiguously say that something is poorly done. It's bad. This is a bad vehicle mode. Look, there's even gaps here in the front where the parts don't quite line up right. And this is transformed as correctly as possible. It's just not good. I mean, this has a little bit of exposed kibble here in the seating area, But aside from that, it actually looks like the way she looks in the cartoon, and it you know, stays on all four wheels. They may not be real wheels, but at least they're flat on the ground. So yeah, like in terms of vehicle mode, if you're one of those guys that likes to display your Transformers in car mode all the time, then this is definitely the one you would want to go to. Oh, also, look at this. Their vehicle modes are almost the same length. Isn't that kind of interesting? When you consider how much taller the Warren the Pocket toy is than the Max Factory one, it's really interesting that they actually got this thing to compress down to such a small size. Of course, it's mostly due to the way the hips transform. As you can see, like this thing, which is all splayed out now, comes together. And you know, like you could have put a little peg here and a little hole here so that it would stay together better, and she wouldn't look like she has an unzipped fly in robot mode all the time. Like you could kind of make us think that those are exhaust ports, you know, for the car, vroom vroom, exhaust. That could have worked, right? Come on, Warren Pocket. I would have given this a perfect recommendation if it wasn't for that crotch thing. Alright, so we got the comparisons in, and that's pretty much the last bit I'm going to say about these toys. Thank you all for watching. I hope the lighting conditions here are okay. I had to use a black backdrop because against a white backdrop, these figures are virtually invisible. And Wakeangel2K1 is going to sign off.